Okay, everyone. Now this is a template for lesson planning, as we have seen in the very beginning. Now I have added some detail to help you see what I mean by the aims, sub aims, etc. So, for example, teacher, tutor, etc. You will add the details. This is easy. Now, in the materials part, you will need to add the course book you're using. So, for example, we can use face-to-face elementary. Okay, maybe for example, second edition. Okay. Also, you can add handouts made by the teacher if you create any handouts. Okay. And of course, we normally use PowerPoint slides, okay, to help students understand and see what we want them to look at. Okay. Now, the lesson type, it depends whether you have grammar, vocabulary, recital skills, reading, productive skills, writing, or speaking. So it depends on the lesson type. So you will need to choose one of those according to your lesson. Now, let's say, for example, our lesson is related to you're teaching a reading lesson, reading sub skills. So your main aim might be to provide students with reading for gist and detailed understanding or detailed understanding. Okay. In the context of reading about animals. So it depends on the topic of the reading or listening. Okay. So this is how you put the main aims. Okay. Don't know what the words do aim. Yes. Okay. Now, sub-aims can be the same idea to provide students with pre-teaching vocabulary to facilitate understanding. This is one thing. Also, to provide students with speaking for fluency practice to respond to the text, because this will be the aim. And of course, we will need to add the context. So maybe we can say in the same context as the main aim. So because basically the context will need to be the same. Okay, now when we come to the target sentences or vocabulary, we said that here we will be teaching some vocabulary as pre-teaching for students to understand the text. So we can add the vocabulary here, the items, like the words. In the personal aims, this depends on what the tutor tells you in feedback. Like, for example, if the tutor said in TP1 or TP2 that you need to work on your instructions to provide clear instructions, so you will need to, for the second TP or from the coming TP, you can make them one of your personal aims. Like the personal aims are more related to you as a teacher, like what you will need to improve. So if you have a problem with instructions, you can say to provide students with clear instructions or with clear instructions and to avoid echoing their answers, for example. And make sure that in every lesson you focus on two or three main aims, because more than that, it will not be practical. Okay, so just keep that in mind. If we go down here, this is the part for anticipated problems and solutions. And as we said earlier, here it's related more to the lesson. It's related to tasks and related to classroom management. So, for example, students might or may face a problem with reading, understanding some key vocabulary items. The solution will be that you will be pre-teaching those items before they start reading. Another problem might be related, for example, to timing. So, for example, students might need some extra time when they read for detail, for example, on in the second reading task. So the solution is you can say I'll keep monitoring, and if students needed more time, I'll be ready to provide them with extra time. Okay, now sometimes it depends again on your lesson. It depends on what you're teaching. It depends on your students. So just try to be ready for everything. Okay, it's better to be ready so you do not get surprised in the classroom. Okay, now when we look at language analysis, so for example, if we're teaching grammar, okay, something like I haven't traveled to London since a long time. Okay, now this sentence is wrong. It has some wrong items, so please be careful when you're writing your model sentences because this will be very important. So we cannot use sense here, it will be full. Okay, and traveled is normally 1L or 2L are fine. Okay, now make sure your model sentence is correct in the lesson plan and on the board. So here we mentioned the use or the meaning of the present perfect. We mentioned the form, subject plus have or has, plus participle. We also mentioned the pronunciation features like weak forms for have and has, sentence stress, and you will need to highlight them on the sentence. So for example, you will need to tell me which sentence or sorry, which words are stressed in the sentence. So sentence stress will be normally on travel as a verb. We have London, and we can stress long time. Okay, so these are the stress. For the weak forms of have and had, you will also need to mention the transcript. How do we pronounce them? And you can get that from a dictionary. Okay, down here, you can mention the CCQs and timelines if you're using any timelines. So these are the concept questions, and please remember to add the answers for these questions. Okay, and here we have the anticipated problems. Now, remember on the cover page, we said we have anticipated problems with tasks and classroom management, but in the language analysis, we have anticipated problems with the language you're teaching. So we divide the problems into, again, three sections: problems with meaning, problems with form, problems with pronunciation, and make sure the problems are relevant to the structure and to the level. Okay, not just the structure and the level, and make sure they are realistic and try to find solutions for these problems. Okay, and you can read the problems here and the solutions. Okay, this is if you're teaching grammar. Now, if you're teaching vocabulary, it's pretty much similar. So you will mention the word, you will mention the meaning, form, and pronunciation features, TTQs if needed, if you're using them. Again, problems, meaning, form, and pronunciation, and you will need to come up with solutions. Okay. Normally on the CELTA course, you would have a session on how to lesson plan, how to write your analysis sheets. So don't worry about this one because you will be you supposedly will be familiar with them on the course, so don't worry. Okay, so this is related to the language analysis and the cover page. Now moving to the last page, which is basically the lesson procedure. You will need to mention the stage, as we mentioned before, like the lead in. You will need to mention the aim for each stage and the interaction and timing. For example, the lead in takes 3 to 5 minutes, and the interaction can be student-student like pair work or group work, teacher to students like whole class. It depends on your lesson, and you mention your procedure. Okay, now make sure your procedure is as detailed as possible. Make sure it's in bullet point. This is much better than a paragraph. It will be easy for the tutor to follow. And it will be easy for you to follow in the lesson if you're using a lesson plan inside the lesson while you're teaching. Okay, and basically, again, you can add your materials down here. I hope this video helped. And if you have any questions, if something is not clear, if you'd like more clarification of anything, please leave me a comment. Okay, so thank you so much, and hopefully this was helpful. Also, before we end this one, I'm gonna show you some couple of resources that you can use while planning. So the first one is a website that you can sign up for free. It's called EnglishLessonPlanner.com. And the second one is a book that is called Learning Teaching by Jim Scrivener. And you will just need to read the planning chapter. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. Hopefully this was helpful.